Hello everyone, today I'm going to be watching a video called Games That Aren't Games by Jacob Geller. What? This video has astronomically high numbers of flashing light. What does that? What do you mean astronomically high numbers? Jesus. Yeah, I might go blind. Maybe should I lower the lights? No. If you're someone who's who I am. Let's see how bad is it. If it was too bad, I maybe rest in the middle or just skip. But yeah, let's see. Jacob Geller, games that, what do you mean? Like, I assume like live service ones or like sandbox? I don't know. Let's go. In the count of 3, 2, 1, go.
Before we start, a lot of games and movies and stuff have strobing lights and seizure warnings. Take this one seriously. Some of these games are going to seem like they're challenging you to not have a seizure. Also, if you can, watch this one on Nebula, because there's a big chunk of this video centered on licensed music I can't play on YouTube, and you'll get a whole bonus essay as well. Thanks!
Nebula. I have never heard of Nebula.
You know, it's kind of miraculous that LSD Dream Emulator is named something as obvious as LSD Dream Emulator. I say this because almost nothing else about the game
I played this game on PS1
is self-evident. There is no clear progression, there is little predictable navigation, even the menu is near incomprehensible. Nothing within the game explains what it is, why it's there, or how you should interact with it. Nothing except the title of the whole project. LSD Dream
And that
Emulator.
man who runs it here.
Released on the Sony PlayStation in 1998, the game only ever came out in Japan. Maybe publishers thought that American and European audiences couldn't handle the...
But how the fuck did I play it then? I literally had a disc with it. They imported or like copied it. I mean, PS1 was like, there was no security, there was no DRMs and shit. So I was like, oh, put it, it works.
Overt drug reference, or that the content was simply too esoteric, too weird, or maybe they had no idea how to market it. Because it requires a PlayStation, it's controlled with a controller, and yet the Japanese ad boldly proclaims, "This is not a game." What is LSD Dream Emulator then? It's a series of rooms, or buildings, or great outdoor spaces all linked together seemingly at random.
It's okay, this game is like the first ever, what do you call it, RNG generated, and at the same time it's a walking simulator too. The first RNG simulator. Literally.
The first bit is always in this small yellow interior, a window and fireplace and bookshelf and door to the bathroom. There's nothing obvious to do here. There's certainly no interact button, but bump into anything, any object at all, and the screen will fade and you'll show up somewhere else. This is it. This is the whole thing in terms of player control. Walk around, look at things, bump something, or walk down the tunnel and show up elsewhere. After a few minutes of exploring like this, or if you fall off a cliff, the sequence, the dream, will end. You'll be shown a chart with upper, downer, static, and dynamic as its cardinal directions, with a square placed somewhere between them as an indication of where you ended.
Yeah, kind of a map system.
Then the next day starts the process over again. However, what this mechanical description misses is the whole goddamn point. The places you're taken to in Dream Emulator are astonishingly weird. Foggy villages with floating denizens, or a sort of pattern hell theme park, or what feels like the inside of a body, filled with jumping babies, or plains being traversed by polygonal horses, or
okay, that is kind of 3D-ish.
An ominously empty cityscape. Gradually, these places, like in dreams, become familiar. The temple interior, the field full of international landmarks, the bridge into the sun's mouth. And yet everything continuously warps, the music different every time, the NPCs there or not, the textures themselves lose their grip. Once I walked into a place that should have been a grassy field, except the grass and rocks and structures had all been replaced with endlessly tiled text.
Oh my my god, this reminds... Okay, there was this game on Steam when you play as a robot. It's not Portal, but it's like puzzle-like, and it's like Eden, New Eden. This reminds me of that. It's like there should be puzzles, but there is no interaction. It's like you get absorbed into certain things. It's like if you're like on an edible or like LSD, probably. I don't know. I never have LSD.
Once a sumo wrestler chased me through the halls and pushed me into another scenario. Once I found a woman in a red dress in the empty city, and as she walked towards me, her head fell off.
Jesus.
The pulsating intro to Dream Emulator gives a half-dozen different meanings to LSD. In Limbo, the silent dream. In Lunacy, the savage dream. In Linking, the sapient dream. This has led some to claim that, hey, the title LSD Dream Emulator doesn't actually refer to drugs. But it does, of course. The game's lead, Osamu Sato, said in an interview that LSD goes back to that LSD, the one that was popular in hippie culture in San Francisco and so on, like what we all said the Beatles used.
Okay.
It's not about mind-altering.
Okay, no one in the right mind thought about the, I don't know, those letters as something completely different. It's not an acronym. I mean, it is, but it's not when people look at it. It is the drug. Literally, it is the drug, and whatever this game is, it is connected to it. No shit.
Psychedelics. But it's also for people who suck at games, Sato says. The inspiration for Dream Emulator came from failing at racing games for the Saturn and PlayStation. Sato said he was repeatedly driving into walls, and wondered what would happen if, when he hit a wall, he would be launched into the next world. The architecture of each level came from a desire to teleport all over the globe instantly, but also from 10 years of Sato's own dream journal. The soundtrack, experimental, kaleidoscopic, never repeating, was released alongside Dream Emulator in an album called Lucy in the Sky with Dynamites.
What?
Although LSD...
So it is actually some of his own experiences like mulch into this. That makes the game actually more credible about it, like regarding the LSD part.
Called Lucy in the Sky with Dynamites. Although LSD Dream Emulator sold poorly in Japan and was never released anywhere else, it's not hard to see why it's achieved cult classic status in the decades since. It's a weirdo indie, a classic itch.io experiment, before either that genre or that storefront really existed. Getting your hands on a physical copy is absurdly expensive today, but that doesn't make it any less remarkable that it was printed physically, that it was allowed to be one of the few thousand PlayStation games released, even when it so proudly proclaims this is not a game. LSD Dream Emulator is one of those Velvet Underground titles, a piece of work not validated by raw sales.
That humorously pisses you off after day 3, because it's everywhere.
But rather the scale of its influence. I've talked about the wonderful 2:22 AM before, which almost certainly owes its empty cityscapes and surreal interludes to Dream Emulator. The spike in popularity of
what did you say?
Of work not validated by raw sales, but rather the scale of its influence. I've talked about the wonderful 2:22 AM before, which almost certainly owes its empty cityscapes and surreal interludes to Dream Emulator. The spike in popularity of haunted PS1 discs plays in the same surreal valley. The Gray Man, who unexpectedly and frighteningly shows up to erase your memory, is basically the template for a dozen creepypastas. Hell, Alt-J even used a screenshot of it for one of their album covers. Above everything else, though, when I think about it, I think about the boldness of—
Yeah, that's sick when your game is like a cultural symbol. Like this game, I knew it. I played it. Like, I live in like a desert. Like, seriously, it's impossible that someone doesn't know it or heard about it. It is that much of a like a popular and known game, not a popular game, known game.
Above everything else, though, when I think about it, I think about the boldness of that trailer. This is not a game. On first blush, it feels like a connection to Magritte's treachery of images. This is not a pipe, except instead of questioning representation, LSD denies its entire medium. But a more accurate translation will tell you that it still does, in a way, but a connection to Magritte's treachery of images. This is not a pipe.
Oh, like liar, liar. But this is not a red pen. It's blue. Oh my god, this is crazy. This is awesome. I'm actually learning so much more about things that I had no idea about. About this fact that this is actually a thing. To show something and proclaim it's not that thing. I love that. That itself is a thing. Can you put that? Can you like put this and then put this on another image and then write underneath it that this is not an image. No, this is not an image of not a pipe. What? Would that even work? That should be just a blank paper. And oh my god, that's crazy.
Except instead of questioning representation, LSD denies its entire medium. But a more accurate translation will tell you that it still does, in a way, recognize its status as a game. You could read the ad as a game such as this is not a game, that it's simply so different from everything else that attempting to categorize it would be meaningless.
It is a game, but it's not the category that it is in. It has not been created yet, has not been like developed yet when it was created, the game. So then nowadays, if people play a game like this on Steam for like $1 or something, they say, okay, like positive, quite positive, very positive. So if it was like better developed, I mean, this is old. So if a game like this was going to be created now, it probably will just be as unique, if not like better even.
But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna try.
Oh my god, what is this one?
In 2012, Steven Lovell released a free game you download from his website. It's kind of being a club. Okay, sorry, let's go somewhere quieter. Slave of God is a 2012
What the fuck is this shit? Jesus! Okay. Alright. It's not as bad as I thought, but holy shit. Oh, I'm getting a migraine from the red, not the white.
Released by developer Steven Lovell, also known by his studio, Ink Repair. Lovell, who might be best known for the puzzle game Steven's Sausage Roll, put up well over 400 experiences on his website between 2008 and 2022. One such title is Running Memories, released on Sausage Roll, put up well over 400 experiences on his website between 2008 and 2022. One such title is Running Memories, released on August 8, 2017, in which the player moves constantly forward through a sort of fog of imagery, environments flowing into and on top of one another.
Oh, this is
You can turn to one side or the other and jump, but never slow down. The instructions say explore until you're done exploring, then press escape to quit. Another such title is Battlegrounds, released on June 6, 2017, a sort of browser-based flipbook of images depicting a game of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Or there's Oh Shit, the Cameraman Ist Arrived, released August 5th, 2009.
Oh, what? Oh,
where you control one small circle that appears to bother another small circle with a camera for 38 seconds.
Okay, I thought it's going to be like a text adventure game because the cameraman hasn't arrived, so there is no footage, you just know what's happening. That would be such a sick game.
Slave of God, released December 30th, 2012, isn't titled as self-evidently as LSD Dream Emulator, but it wouldn't be hard to suggest other drugs to match.
Yeah, that is ecstasy.
Its vibe. Slave of God is a nightclub emulator, a deafening, blurring, strobing club, a neon point of concentration centered in an otherwise confounding interior space. Other figures bathed in colored auras float around the club or thrash about on the dance floor or watch from the DJ booth.
Is this, if this game has like a what do you call it, VR support, and you can just get high and get into this, you basically are getting LSD, but not mentally, like visually. This is insane.
Stumbling through the colors and shapes, you might fall into a pit with a couple guys that...
Like, dude, look, it's melting into each other. Look,
Stumbling through the colors and shapes, you might fall into a pit with a couple guys that kind of look like gorillas or glimpse a little floating baby thing, or you might just find the urinal. Most interesting is the sound design, which is typically dominated by that pulsing beat, but is also strongly locational. Wander outside the center and the bass will be replaced. In the bathroom, you get a robotic series of beeps on top of the pile of speakers, a chiller electronica, and way back in the corner, the soundscape becomes almost serene as you look down from above all the particles. Look down on the dance floor and all its occupants. There's even...
This is like the difference between... This is like the difference between Gen Z Dream Simulator, LSD Simulator, and then like Doomer LSD Simulator. Like, that's the difference. Like, that one is like chill, there's some scary shit going on, there's like some bullshit here and there. I mean, you still can experience it. This is like, you go a slow pace. This is like Jesus Christ, how do you not getting a headache after like 5 minutes of playing this? It's like simulating every part of your sensories, like to just die.
Even less overt gamification present here than an LSD Dream emulator. No chart to show your supposed progress, no navigation between maps or characters to assign personalities.
Yeah. Gen Z doesn't give a shit about navigation and progress.
You can try to stay in time with a partner on the dance floor, but nothing much happens if you do. Slave of God is an experiment in overstimulation, a reckless use of textures and particles and shaders, and its existence, hosted on a website with 400 other such experiments, honestly makes more sense than Dream Emulator, a title which had physical copies stocked in stores, a title which was
Wait a second. So this Dream Simulator was made, the crazy one, by the person who started to make them in 2008 to 2022. If that's the case, maybe he's a millennial or even a boomer. I'm sorry.
Honestly makes more sense than Dream Emulator, a title which had physical copies stocked in stores, a title which was advertised on television. The similarities between the two games are obvious, which makes the differences in scale and support and corporate buy-in, all the more fascinating. Things like Ink Repair's website or Itch.io make it easier for anyone to release their own experiments, but the lack of such a website in 1998 meant that LSD Dream Emulator's improbable release got to be more mainstream than anything Lavelle has made. But 2 years after Slave of God, another thing released wide, and kickstarted more of a debate than either of these titles on whether you could possibly call it a game.
Mountain? What?
The most traditionally interactive part of Mountain is before it really even starts. Draw art, it tells you, with black lines on a white canvas. Draw forgiveness, draw your purpose. And then, from these prompts, somehow inscrutably, the program produces a mountain. This is Mountain. This is the whole thing. A floating rock in space dotted with trees, a changing time of day, and more than anything we've talked about thus far, this is it. You don't even need a controller, an input method. You can manually rotate and zoom in or out, or you can let Mountain do that for you. Your time for input on this piece of land is over as soon as it's begun.
Huh? That's it? What kind of bitch-ass god am I then? Bro, a god would crash the fucking top and just make volcanoes pour over. What the fuck? Is there organisms? Can you zoom in like a molecule or something?
Mountain was made by David O'Reilly, who already held some level of prestige as a filmmaker and would go on later to make everything. The game, that is. It was announced at the Museum of Contemporary Art in LA, it was published by Double Fine, and as such, its release made an improbably big splash for what you could, not inaccurately, refer to as an interactive screensaver. Ian Bogost wrote about it in grand terms. You are not Mountain, rather you are Mountain. You play as the abyss between the human and the alpine.
Bro, this dude was high as fuck. This shit doesn't make no sense. You are not a mountain. A mountain's point of view would be black. Because it's dead.
Andrew Webster of The Verge wrote about the strange emotional attachment he formed to the piece.
You're the god that's looking to the mountain. But it can't do shit.
Carolina Miranda wrote for the LA Times that since the action of the game is non-existent, it, quote, leaves the player with plenty of space to think. Perhaps the most interesting game there is.
Bro, stop it. Stop encouraging creation of games that aren't games and there's no interaction. Come on, man. We already have shit AAAs. Now they're gonna, to be fair, if it's like one game and it's just completely, if there was more detail, if the generation of sentences would accustom to more like randomness that was actually purposed in some manner or form. Like, I don't know, there was this game that I played that it was just say, this is not a game, this is like a tarot. This is a tarot. You basically are seeing your own fortune based on the questions that you're answering. If this was kind of like that, I would have given more of a respect. But what the fuck is it?
Like LSD Dream Emulator, the imagined mechanics happening behind the scenes are arguably more important than the actual programming. The opening canvas that supposedly generates your mountain lends it a sense of individuality, even though I could not tell you if your inputs actually mean anything. Dream Emulator arbitrarily shuffles you between upper or downer, static or dynamic, and Mountain tells you that your mountain is based on your interpretation of forgiveness. Mountain presents a number of mechanics that feel like they must be meaningful because that's how we understand games to work. You can zoom all the way in or all the way out. If you click on the mountain, birds fly out of it. Occasionally,
what is that?
You can zoom all the way in or all the way out. If you click on the mountain, birds fly out of it. Occasionally, pieces of bizarre space junk fly into the mountain. A horn, a computer monitor.
Is this mountain like in, what the fuck? Is this like in the, is this even a mountain? Why is that laptop so big?
And if you click these, they'll make noise. Even mashing the keyboard plays little synthy notes. None of it matters, and all of it matters, because there is nothing else. It's effectively an idle program. You get out what you put in.
Jesus Christ, like, I thought like Genshin didn't have end games and like, this is the game. Just let it be on your second. This is the perfect second monitor game. It's like for hippies though, like for people who like want to chillax and like just look at a mountain that is like, it's not even fun.
Alongside the glowing critical reception to Mountain was a parallel argument about what it was
kinda cute.
And what to do about it. Ben Kuchera wrote for Polygon that the whole experience seemed like a prank O'Reilly was playing on the audience, that attempting to find meaning in it was assuming a thoughtfulness onto Mountain that it probably doesn't have. Partially in response, Michael McMaster wrote that Mountain is not a text to be read, it's a form to be explored, to which writer Austin C. Howe responded with a blog called On Text versus Form,
okay,
which
give me a second, Mr. Criticers. Give me a second, let me see this game. Okay, so this game, well, this game is not that expensive, to be honest. I thought it would be like $20. It's like 39th of a pound. Or is that a euro? No, that's a pound, probably. And the full price is like 79th of a pound. So, that this is not as bad as I thought. This actually is a very... I mean, I can actually buy it right now. Breaks the mold of video games. Nothing you do matters in this game, but you still obsess over it. that's literally what I'm doing. They say in the beginning that there is nothing can do. But bro, okay, let's see the reviews. Everything is a fucking text. It's great. Best game ever. Played it 100 hours. What? Mountain? Bro, what are you guys doing? Huh? When you play this game, all your world will turn into a mountain. Are you hungry, mountain? Do you have a sister, mountain? But if you... Don't you die, though? Are the new Star Wars are totally bullshit. All the modern ones are kind of meh, man. I kind of enjoyed Boba Fett and the cute little... Oh my... Let's not talk about that. Circle corrupted. Why would you need a safe one? This is awesome. Okay, this is awesome. The fact that I don't know shit about this game then. This game is probably a blast. Let's continue.
Everything is a fucking text. But ultimately, I think the question of how to think of Mountain, and maybe more importantly, why it is important that it's labeled a game, was tackled best by Cameron Kunzelman in a piece for Paste. Cameron writes, I think there's a desire to see Mountain as profound. It wants to cultivate that, with its poetry, with its random objects, with its sometimes soaring spouts of music. I'll come out and say it. There's nothing special about this mountain. It is like every other mountain, and if we wanted, we could try to mine that normality for profundity. That flips the relationship onto the player. The mountain becomes about how I relate to that mountain and what it does to me, and most importantly, how long I can stand to witness it.
Why do you have to make gaming so complicated? Like, it's not, if it's not a game. It's not, there is no interactions. The interaction is moving, oh man. Gaming became such a weird shit. Like, this is crazy. When art and gaming collide to more modernistic ways, it's not a, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not an artist, neither a game maker, but I'm a gamer, for sure. This is not one.
It becomes a game of endurance. How much mountain can you take before you close it in boredom?
Cameron, that's a fucking white-ass name, or no?
This idea of the flipped relationship, of the mountain being a sort of cipher for how the audience relates to it, is generally my perspective on non-explanatory art, whether that's a mountain, or a play, or a big red canvas. The advantage I think Mountain has is that its strange level of interactivity, present but mechanically meaningless, pushes that question of reflection more accessibly than a painting or some other medium. The biggest impediment to appreciating a piece of art in a museum might just be how easy it is to keep walking, to glance over, see an unorthodox sculpture or video, and make the split-second decision to not slow down and enter a conversation with the piece.
Like, to be honest, that looks amazing. Chasm by Adili Donald Adita. What the fuck? That's a weird name. Adili. Is it tilted? Maybe, because the border, okay. I would love that painting. Maybe a copy. It looks amazing. It's good, you know, for where? It's good for your, like, patio. And when there is a shade, there is some plants here and there's some vegetables. And then you have it in the shade on the wall. And it looks fantastic, bro. In a cloudy day, oh my god, that would give you some light.
Because Mountain has been given the title of a video game, because we inherently understand that video games are something to be interacted with, that conversation flows a little more comfortably. The most easily identifiable game Mountain is playing is, as Cameron wrote, a game of endurance. But endurance is a genuinely valuable skill to practice when confronted with art you can't immediately understand.
True.
I know that for some, calling a piece of art a game feels diminishing, but I am tickled that being saddled with the label of game almost forces a deeper level of conversation with a piece than a more traditional, more museum-y art. I don't have—
Well, yeah, because games are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to occupy your time, or waste it, and you usually play them either with or without a computer. Like, there are games you can do without a computer, but usually people stick to the consoles. It's like 2022. I think what I'm getting is the fact that the problem I am having right now in my brain is the fact that I don't have the endurance to be able to understand and appreciate his art. So I'm going to let his point convince me otherwise.
The piece than a more traditional, more museum-y art. I don't have the answer to what the theme of Mountain is, but I do have an answer to what the game is, and that game, forcing conversation with a creation you don't fully understand, is one of my favorite things in the world. Mountain has gone through... I don't have the answer to what the theme of Mountain is, but I do have an answer to what the game is, and that game, forcing conversation with a creation you don't fully understand, is one of my favorite things in the world.
That is a huge need in humanity, though. Like, looking for it and trying to find it and actually putting ourselves in its place and looking at our creation and thinking about it. What does God think about us and we think about? Okay, I get his point. Holy shit, that's actually a very profound way of thinking about it. The fact that you are thinking about the absurdity of the thing you created. The fact that if God created us by accident, if God made us like that, humans, like bunch of people around like a sphere, like what if it's like that? What if God was playing Mountain and made Earth because the game glitched or something? This is insane. The more deep you think about this shit.
Mountain has gone through a couple overhauls since release. A newer version with better graphics is now available on Steam and the App Store. Unfortunately, this version also adds achievements, like use all the keyboard musical notes, which I really think takes away from its introspective nature. But there have been more fascinating updates as well. A buttonless arcade cabinet, for example.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
Or bringing my thoughts on its status as art full circle, Mountain got its own museum exhibit.
Bro, we should be making games like this. To be fair, O'Reilly's name made 80% of this art. Because there's so many of these type of games, but they're basically blown like down the esteem. Because the artists to look at this and did you literally like read what they said about this game? That majority of gamers usually say, oh, okay, this is bullshit. What is this?
Kinda. At the Fukuoka airport in Japan, a sort of steel topography housed a couple monitors playing Mountain for all visitors, its sheer scale positioning Mountain as a thing worth being considered. However, housed in an intimidating metal structure and without obvious input methods, I worry the Mountain exhibit may have removed some of the ease of its conversation.
Yeah, Mountain's supposed to be a personal thing for you, your Mountain.
Over the past several years, we've seen games and museums wade into friendly waters. Video games have received big exhibits at the Smithsonian, MoMA, and other institutions. Many other museums have uploaded fully explorable online versions of themselves. You can walk around the Guggenheim in Google Street View. You can jankily teleport around the Louvre. In 2016, the Museum of London commissioned an enormous and detailed model of London before the fire of 1666 that visitors can freely wander in Minecraft.
Holy shit! Yo, that is so fucking sick!
And while I think these are great, I actually used to teach a museum science camp using Minecraft. What I find more fascinating are exhibits created entirely as games, with no real-world analog to hold them back.
Shit, that's so good.
Released just a couple months ago by a creator named Louis, Monuments to Guilt is
And the thing is, modders can actually make the art look like London, even in Minecraft, because there's just so many different mods. You can make the Minecraft not cubic if you want to. You can make it like a real game, like not cubic. It looks a bit sketchy, but again, it's possible. So you can basically texture and everything to be real. Holy, this is awesome.
Released just a couple months ago by a creator named Louis, Monuments to Guilt is a fairly straightforward exploration of the digital museum format. Monuments to Guilt introduces us to the Museum of Exclusionary Design, a few brightly lit rooms that feature dozens of bench designs. Each bench demonstrates some new way to prevent people from drawing too much comfort from them. Some make it impossible to lay down, others are uncomfortable to sit for long, and some are designed so it's impossible to use the quote-unquote bench at all. Louis' game, and he does refer to it as a game, could quite easily be a real museum exhibit. All the spaces are realistically sized.
This reminds me of a Stanley Parable, man. Holy shit. Yeah, the fucking devil.
Hanging benches are supported by wires. Nothing is too extravagant. Perhaps the most infeasible part is the benches themselves. Each is sourced from a real design, often paired with the exact coordinates where you can find said bench. But these are largely guerrilla captures, remade from third-party photographs and collections, certainly not included with the express consent of the designers themselves. It allows Monuments to Guilt to carry the prestige of a nice, high-quality museum exhibit without, you know, the actual funding and permissions it'd take to pull it off.
That's crazy.
On some level, Monuments to Guilt is completely non-interactive. Like Mountain, there's nothing you can do to directly impact the environment, but like Mountain, this non-interactivity highlights the point. Plastered on the museum walls are constant reminders. Please do not touch, no photography, no eating, no drinking, no sitting, no sleeping.
It's a digital forum. Below it up with the RPG. No one cares. Put this in, what was it? Grenades, bananas, and AK-47. What was that game in VR? Oh, that was so fucking fun to play with these things. Like, go sit. I want to try. I mean, to be fair, with 3D modeling, with 3D printing, you can actually
At first, these warnings may seem redundant or only present for verisimilitude. Of course I won't eat, there's no button for that. Of course I won't sleep, it's a non-interactive exhibit. Of course I won't sit, it's just a bunch of benches. The Museum of Exclusionary Design is not simply the space that this exhibit occupies.
Okay, let's see. All benches on display are digital recreation of their real-life counterpart. While great care has been taken to ensure the accuracy of form and texture, there might be a slim... Okay, that makes sense. Provided. Okay. Oh, this is just
it's the way the player is forced to interact or not interact with it. A room full of benches where sitting is prohibited, not just against the rules, but against the laws of the game's design. Most omnipresent, and maybe most clever of all, is the perspective. You may have wondered about the white letterboxing on this footage. That's not an editorial.
What the, that's not even a bench anymore. What is that?
When the game opens, the screen does too, like an eyelid. Except it stops, not even halfway open. Almost 2/3 of the screen remain...
Is the music accurate?
Almost 2/3 of the screen remain unusable throughout the whole experience, a theoretically aesthetic decision that's frustrating in how much usable space it denies the player. And then you look at these benches, designed for discomfort, designed to remove their own purpose, and you get it.
As benches.
The Museum of Exclusionary Design. The museum is gamic, not in what it allows, but what it denies, and it uses that denial to further its point. Louis' project was never as...
Oh my god, is that one of those? To be fair, those are not as worst as the ones that are metal in airports, and they're like a row of seats connected together. So if someone's doing this with their feet, like, everything shakes. I hate those. It's in the dentist too, and I fucking hate those, man. You just stand
as far
for
as
like
I
2
know,
hours.
considered for real physical space. It's impressive how closely it sticks to real museum design while being an entirely virtual experience. But there's one more thing I want to talk about, something that was at one point going to exist in real life, and yet is one of the single most impressive games that aren't games I've ever played. Everything just managed to land in the right place.
Kid Dementia Exhibition. Dementia? Or I have no idea what that means. That is not a sentence I can comprehend, or it's not even a sentence. Oh, that's
It was going
so
to be
amazing.
a huge red construction made by welding shipping containers together, constructed so that it looked as if a brutalist spacecraft had crash-landed into the classical architecture of the Victoria and Albert Museum in Kensington, inserted into the urban fabric of London like an ice pick into Trotsky, jutting up into the grey English sky. 21 years after the release of Kid A and Amnesiac, Radiohead planned to destroy a London museum. Not intentionally. They just couldn't do the thing they wanted without completely compromising its structural integrity. Couldn't make the brutalist spacecraft big enough, heavy enough, alien enough. And then, in 2020, everyone in the world went inside for a while, and the idea for whatever Tom York and Stanley Donwood wanted to make did as well. And then in 2021, they, along with developers Knowing the Machine and Arbitrarily Good Productions, released one of the wildest museums to ever virtually exist. The Kid Asia exhibition, still not really sure how I should pronounce that, is by far the biggest...
so weird and
Still not really sure how I should pronounce that. Is by far the biggest production I've talked about today. Published by Epic Games and spearheaded by,
Games.
Radiohead. The exhibition almost certainly cost millions more dollars and was seen by millions more eyes than Dream Emulator, Slave of God, Mountain, and Monuments to Guilt combined. But Kid Amnesia is no less challenging because of this. Given its relative mainstreamness, I can't help but admire how weird and evocative an object it is. Like that original trailer for LSD Dream Emulator, the opening moments of Kid Amnesia lay down a claim. This is not a game. It's instead a museum, I suppose. Every dream they originally wanted to cram into a welded shipping container structure, instead blown out in an impossible way. It is bottomless pits and infinite stairways, and instead...
Oh, this is the roots of... Oh my god, we're under the ground. What the
blown out in an impossible way. It is bottomless pits and infinite stairways and voids and stars, and it is...
Oh my god. This reminds me of Wave VR. It's like a DJ Clubhouse VR simulator. It has experiences that look like this, bro. If you want to experience some shit, go watch this. Like, they do live stuff on like Sundays and stuff. It's a free game. It's so good.
Genuinely. Moving. I like Radiohead quite a bit. I've listened to Kid A and Amnesiac a number of times. But what's kind of incredible about the exhibition is how few straightforward implementations of the songs there are. The national anthem is an iconic piece of Kid A, that bass and drums and anger in concert with each other. And in the exhibition, those pieces are all there but broken apart, separated by the virtual space this not game allows. You walk into the exhibit labeled The National Anthem, only to be greeted by the thinnest synths and 100 haphazardly stacked televisions. You goop yourself into the square of gel in the center, and yes, there are the drums and the bass, but the vocals are isolated again, a payphone in the corner with York's digitized yelping, awkward and lonely. A live recording of Everything in Its Right Place plays only in a little cubby, with a strange demon repeatedly looking at you like you should be embarrassed to be watching. In a room
This is what the fuck? It's like it's a cute little demon, but what the fuck? Why is it so angry and sad?
In a room that feels as dreamlike as anything in Dream Emulator, the skeleton of In Limbo plays while hundreds upon hundreds of notes detach themselves from the wall.
All the notes are fucking real, bro. I don't see any repeats. Maybe a tiny bit of two.
Soar into nowhere. A hall lit with a dim floating cube suddenly swerves directly into Slave of God territory when you step on a certain floor tile. By setting the album in 3D space, the exhibition is able to deconstruct the songs of Kid Amnesia almost physically, demonstrate how each piece exists within and without the whole. It's doing something with the tracks that genuinely could not be done with pure audio. Spending just a couple minutes in here makes it obvious why Radiohead wanted to do a museum exhibit to begin with. And yet, just a few minutes also makes it obvious why, whether they knew it or not, this had to exist in a gamic medium. Any room's individual special effects pale in comparison to the overwhelming feeling of the space as a whole. A space that doesn't make sense, a space that spirals in on itself, labyrinthian, bigger on the inside than the outside. There's a pyramid floating in the overgrown concrete atrium. Look, if there's one thing you take away from this video, one actionable request I have of you, it is to download the free Kid Amnesia exhibition and go inside the pyramid in the atrium. I'll be here when you get back. For most of my...
Give me a second. Alright, so I downloaded it. If you wanted me to play, I will stream it after this video. Tell me in the comments. Let's see what's going on. But yeah, I'm not going to play it now. It's so late. But yeah, let's see what happens. Tell me in the comments if you want me to play it.
Music listening life, I haven't liked music videos. There are plenty of interesting, beautiful music videos, but listening to music for me is such an abstract, nebulous experience that I kind of end up resenting any video that makes the abstract concrete for attaching literal imagery to what was previously a kind of indescribable emotional blob of a song. What's in the pyramid does not feel like a music video. It doesn't feel like a conversation either, not like I talked about with Mountain. Instead, it is that emotional blob, precisely somehow pulled out of my brain and made manifest in ways I've never seen. And because the rest of the museum has refused to play a complete unadjusted song, the fact that they do in the pyramid makes the obvious interpretation feel revolutionary. How to Disappear Completely emanates out of the void as pictures fragment and fly towards you in countless pieces. You and whose army creates a zoetrope of a single dancing creature before blowing it out to be completely overwhelming. This is not a game, in that it's so different from everything else that the categorization is meaningless.
It's an experience.
I am being hyperbolic, of course. Despite their own claims to the contrary, I think it's fairly easy to call all of these pieces games, from the aimless trance of Slave of God, to the indifference of Mountain, to the transcendence of Kid Amnesia. Not because they resemble our more mainstream understanding of games, they certainly don't, but because framing each of these titles as games bestows a sense of mechanical investment that can't help but grow into emotional engagement. The label of game can say as much about your method of understanding as whatever the project is doing on its own. And you might hear that and think, okay, but where does it stop? Doesn't that make any museum a game?
Bro, I mean, it's been going on for a while. We are in the age of abstract games too, as much as we were like in abstract art. So at the same time, I would say it is and it's not a game for the person who wants to acknowledge that the experience they are experiencing can be considered fun and enjoyable and compelling. Because when it comes to game, if a game is compelling enough for you to playing it, it's a game. So no other argument should matter for you. Let's see.
Is photography a game? Is a book a game? But here's the thing.
As much as it wants to be.
I'm just a YouTuber. My thoughts on this don't have to have perfect academic consistency. Everything's a game. Everything's a game.
Yeah, fuck it. Oh my god. Bro, but the grind in the real game is hard.
How do I do this transition? I've made another video essay that's perhaps the polar opposite.
Oh, Darksiders! Bro, this shit was so sick! I love this game. I love this game.
Of this one. Recently, I played through the forgotten gem, The Darkness 2. And
Darkness 2. Okay, never mind. Darksiders was the other one. This is Darkness. I played this one too, but I played the first one.
Rediscovered one of my favorite mechanics in games, and I just had to talk about it. And so I did, in a completely separate video you can watch right now on Nebula.
What?
This is a whole other distinct thing for me, both a little too light and simultaneously maybe a lot too gory to put on YouTube. Even in 2023,
they look so like
playing The Darkness 2 is a revelatory experience.
It's really good.
The speed and chaos with which simple arena fights unfold, the number of ways your powers can be combined. Have you heard of Nebula? It's the streaming service created by video essayists like me, owned by the creators that make content for it. And it's a thing I believe in wholeheartedly. Nebula, for instance, lets me host a version of this essay where I can actually play the Radiohead songs I was talking about. It lets other creators release whole, well-produced classes or essay series on topics that would instantly be wiped from YouTube, and it lets me pursue all sorts of alternate video projects, which now total nearly 7 hours of fully original, non-YouTubeable content. Unlike the video
non-YouTubeable. Bro, I wish I could. The thing is, I barely can watch things on YouTube because the internet is shit, the VPN is shit, and every country hates us. So for now, YouTube is my source.
Watch. There's little discussion of
for your content, man.
You know what? I was about to say, unlike the video you just watched, there's little discussion of the nature of art, but that's not true. Somehow The Darkness 2 leads right back to the nature of art as well. Anyway, Nebula's cheap.
What?
You directly support me by signing up, and you get an incredible amount of bang for your buck. Now, you've got a whole backlog of my videos to get through. Clock's ticking. Let's go.
Bro, your videos are so fucking good. Like, you are so calm, and you talk your mind. It's so good. It's so brilliant. It's like Nexpo, but not dark, more mysterious, and more what do you call it? Like, makes the engine of my mind work. What do you call that shit? Mind puzzling or something like that. Profound. Let's say profound. Because even the cold one, it was dark, it was scary, but it was profound because it brought out something out of the darkness of the cold that was more real to us than the cold itself. Because the cold isn't the problem. It's our fragility that is the cause of our death most of the time in the cold. So that is awesome. I love that. And Jacob Gellert is an absolutely amazing storyteller and like explainer. Oh my god. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please give a like and subscribe. And if you can, support the channel by becoming a member. For now, have a nice day and goodbye. See you all later.